What's up, my ninjas? Strydent here, and I've been poking around online, and I found some images of the first images of the GI Joe Retaliation figures. Now, I'm not really looking forward to the movie, just like the first movie. I wasn't really big on the movie itself. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, but it wasn't really great. But the figures were cool. I mean, a lot of people have, points. For a lot of people, the figures are points of contention. But for me, I mean, that's why I even think of G.I. Joe in the first place. I don't think movie or anything else. Maybe the cartoon, but I think figures first. So, anyway, as soon as I heard they were doing Retaliation, I'm like, these figures are going to be cool. Lo and behold, these figures actually are pretty cool for the most part. Only thing I'm not feeling is the whole ninja theme that they seem to be going with, because I lived through the 90s when they pulled that shit with everything G.I. Joe, and we even had a ninja force, and it was just poorly executed. It was part of the death, the slow death for a time of, our beloved franchise. So anyway, what I'm going to do is go through, show you guys pictures, give you guys pros and cons of, in my opinion, and leave it up there for debate. So stay tuned. Alright, so these are the heads of, the upper body bust shots of Roadblock, Cobra Commander, the Cobra Trooper, and Duke. I don't give a shit about Duke or this version of Roadblock, but what I am amped about is the Cobra Commander and the Cobra Trooper, because as it is, I've got a bunch of Cobra Commander figures. He's become one of my favorite, character designs out there, and even the one from the previous movie grew on me after a while because it was so original. I think the Roadblock figure is going to get a lot of attention with kids, because there's a lot of kids who this will be their first introduction to G.I. Joe, and if not G.I. Joe, to Roadblock, because a lot of kids grew up with Heavy Duty because of all that craziness with that character. That Duke, I'm like 1,000,000,000% sure it's going to be a peg warmer. I mean, that's usually what happens. That's how I was able to actually get the Dukes that I got from the Rise of Cobra. I am geeked about the G.I. Joe Trooper, though, because he comes with a couple heads, and I'm going to show you all that stuff, later on in the video. The Red Ninja's cool. It kind of sucks that he's reused parts, but, it'll be cool to have some ninjas. But above all else, I'm geeked about freaking Storm Shadow. Storm Shadow's my favorite Cobra character, and he's my favorite design of the bunch, and I think they did a ridiculously good job redesigning his costume. And even though I like the old one, this one shits all over that old costume. So props to Hasbro or the designers working with John Chu. They actually made a design that is as cool, if not cooler, than the Great White Hope, Snake Eyes. I mean, you can clearly see that these movies have become Snake Eyes' show, and I'm glad that somehow they didn't make Storm Shadow suffer simply because it's Snake Eyes' show. So props to them. Zartan looks badass too, actually. It's almost like a throwback to the Renegades design. Okay. Now, like I said, I'm really geeked about this Cobra Commander design, because from the minute I saw it in the trailer, I was like, wow, how come they didn't do this the first time around? Yes, that first costume pissed everybody off. It was really, really, really out there. But this proves that we weren't, the 80s designers were not that far off. Neither are the Pursuit of Cobra designers. So, yeah, movie people, just go with the subject matter the way it is. Source material, usually, if it worked well enough to make a movie of it and to last for 30 years, or I'm sorry, an animated movie and a TV show and last 30 plus years, then it would work, in live action as well. You could kind of stick to it, but this looks like what the commander, a terrorist commander of such a huge organization, would look like. I noticed, though, that there are details, like you can't see if his feet have any articulation and all that, but just for the way this costume looks and the gear that he has, I really don't care if he's lacking in articulation. Because, I mean, let's be real. most of the time we have Cobra Commander sitting in the background somewhere yelling at someone, and that's our dioramas for the most part, or he's shooting someone. He's not running around doing some heavy combat, so it's kind of cool though that he looks like he could possibly do some heavy combat. So props to them for that. I'm digging that pistol. And the utility belt is it's nice with all those, I should call it a tack belt actually. It's really nice. It looks like, he just looks like he's the guy in charge of Cobra. It's not much more to say. And that helmet is badass. It's almost like a cross between Serpentor and the original Cobra Commander, the old school helmet. But yeah, props to them for that. I'm excited about that. But let me get to who I'm really excited about, and that's freaking Storm Shadow. Storm Shadow is my boy. He's been my favorite Cobra since I was a little kid, since before I got the whole, struggle and beef between him and Snake Eyes. And, I just think he's cooler than Snake Eyes. Sorry. The actual ninja is cooler than the fake or the American ninja. Sorry. To me, he's just better. And this design helps drive that home. Shinobi wore white. Storm Shadow originally wore white. He's that badass. And you can see it here. I just hope that he comes with a cool set of sheaths, like a dual sheath backpack, to hold both swords, something cool, not something cheesy. If not, I'll just use the ones I already have from the Rise of Cobra Storm Shadows. But look at that design. The little bits of armor woven in with the cloth and the baggy pants and the knee pads. Shit, it looks like something I would have designed. So props to them for that. This design really captures the essence of the character. He's a modern ninja. He's not the old school one. He trained in the traditional arts, but he added technology and, in areas that it would be necessary. Like a souped up ninja costume that actually has armor underneath it, as opposed to just chainmail. Ninjas are all about misdirection and being underhanded to some degree and kind of cheating, so to speak. So, it looks like he could take bullet fire, he is in the modern day, and we don't use swords, we use guns. So props to them for this badass design, especially since this one will probably be 3 billion times easier to get a hold of than the Rise of Cobra, I'm sorry, not Rise of Cobra, the Renegades Storm Shadow, which in my opinion, and actually in the opinion of many, is the greatest Storm Shadow figure they've done so far. It's like impossible to find that thing. And it only just came out a couple months ago, like 2 months ago or a month ago, something like that. And it's like impossible. So anyway, I can't wait for this figure. I'm going to talk about him for a couple more seconds just so I can stare at this picture some more and just say good things about this design. You can see the articulation is there. You can see that there's the design is sleek enough that you could probably add pieces onto it. Hopefully they'll make him come with another head. If not, a lot of us already have them. But I just can't stress enough how badass this design is. It almost feels like it came straight out of Metal Gear. Not so much U.S. government ninja, but a ninja assassin working for Foxhound or the Patriots, or just someone. He would fit perfectly in that world with this design, and I dig that they went in this direction with Storm Shadow. Next up we have the Arashikage Red Ninjas, or the Cobra Red Ninjas. I don't know which one there will be in the movie, but whatever. They're Red Ninjas. Now what pisses me off about this is this figure is pretty much a slightly modified version of the Storm Shadow figure from Renegades that is out right now, that's impossible for us to find. He's got the swords, everything, and the whole low-tech look like the Storm Shadow from the Renegades line, and he's got the articulation and everything. I just guess since they painted everything red, he won't have the extra heads, he won't have the extra backpacks, and he'll come with some funky, you can see it right there, some funky accessory to make him seem like a toy. So that kids will have something to not use their imaginations with. But what more is there for me to say? The design was already good when it was a Storm Shadow figure. It's just strange to me that this is one of the first times that I've seen them use an entire figure and just repaint the color, or you know, repaint the body, the overall body of the figure, and call it something else entirely. I mean, it's possible that they did that back in the day with the 25th anniversary red ninjas and the blue ninjas that they had for Cobra. They could have been repainted Storm Shadows. I don't know. My son has one of those, but you know, I'm not a big fan of 25th anniversary, so I don't really look at him like that. But you know, here he is, Red Ninja. It'll be cool if these guys, you know, manage to stay. If Hasbro manages to supply enough of these guys to, you know, most stores, it'll be nice to pick up a bunch of these, at least 4, because you know that's my goal. Is I need at least 4 of each kind of soldier. So while we're on the subject of red ninjas, here's Jinx. But the strange thing about this figure is, what's the deal with a white version of Jinx? Clearly in the trailers, actually, what's the deal with both versions of these being the first versions of this character to be released in the line? It's strange because, you know, Jinx is going to be, this version and the classic version are going to be San Diego Comic-Con exclusives, kind of like what they did with Zartan. But it's lame because she's like, probably she gets screen time, like decent screen time in the film. At least, you know, we would assume she does, because she's going to be alongside, you know, King Dingaling himself, Snake Eyes. So it's like, if she's one of those characters, why are we making exclusives for San Diego Comic-Con? Now, a lot of people were pissed about this, but it only leads me to believe that the actual movie version of Jinx will be the main retail version of the figure that we'll be, we'll be getting, which will be cool because, you know, you gotta have the designs, regardless of what they do in the films. We gotta have the designs of the characters represented in figure form. I mean, it only makes sense. It's only fair. It's pretty much why we collect action figures, because you see a good design, you want a version of it for your collection, you know? So, I don't know. I'm not really excited about this version. I'm not excited about that version either. I really want the version from the movie, even though to some degree I think that there's 2 versions too, right? There's like a yellow and black costume that she has, because I saw her swinging off of something with Snake Eyes on the side of a mountain fighting those ninjas. And then there's the red version that's all sexy like for the films. And I'm not a big fan of the sexy time costume, but you know, to get the proper head sculpt, I'd probably get that one, and then get the yellow ninja suit and put the regular head on that body if possible. But we'll have to see. But as you can see, they put the right attention to detail. It is a throwback to her original design back in the day. They just updated the details to make her look a little bit more like a actual ninja and not some Asian chick with parts from all over the place pretending to be a ninja. So, you know, props to them for that. And since I mentioned King Dingaling himself, here's Snake Eyes. Big hairy deal, another version of Snake Eyes. The one thing I noticed about this that I don't really dig is that they didn't really get the dimensionality of the armor that he has in the new film. In the new film, the armor kind of sticks up off of his person, as if he's wearing a cat suit underneath or a sneaking suit underneath, and then the armor plating sits on top. This, you can clearly see that it's like they melded the armor or what's the word I wanted? They sculpted the armor to fit snugly against the sneaking suit, and it doesn't really get the same effect, in my opinion. And then of course they gave him some weird something or other that you put on him to make him qualify as a toy. Hasbro and other companies, you guys need to cut that shit out. You clearly know that the only people who are going to have the money to buy all these fucking toys are the adults. And you know, if we buy them for our kids, they usually don't need the stuff that the guys don't use in the film. I mean, like, I'm pretty sure Snake Eyes is not going to use this big old Mega Man or Centurions looking glider. I don't know, I really wish they would cut that shit out. But here you go, for all you Snake Eyes fans, you have yet another Snake Eyes figure in all his strange glory. And I'm going to get one of the other characters out of the way that I really don't give a shit about right now. that most of us don't give a shit about right now. That would be Channing Tatum as Duke for the second time. Not only is the character still lackluster as fuck, at least by design. Hopefully he'll do cool things in the movie. The figure is kind of lackluster. I like the fact that they gave him, you know, that military green, and he still got armor like he did in the first movie, which is something I got to give him props for. They kept the armor, but they just upped the color, because the color helps differentiate good guys from bad guys, etc., etc., you know? I dig the fact that they did that. I don't like this ginormous cannon bullshit that he's got going on. I mean, I guess there could be an application for it because, you know, we're dorks and that's what we do, but honestly, I don't think anybody cares that there's another Duke figure. You could still find Duke figures now from Rise of Cobra. So, yeah, peg warmer. I'm predicting that Duke will be a peg warmer. All 20 billion versions they will have will be peg warmers. Mark my words. Now, here's another figure that I'm not really that geeked about. I mean, it's cool, but, you know, I'm not super geeked about. Here is The Rock as Roadblock. Now, it's kind of cool that they gave us a throwback version of Roadblock. It's pretty much The Rock in a more realistic version of Roadblock's attire, you know? Instead of the camo shirt and the orange-ish pants or rust-colored pants, they gave him actual camo, you know, a black shirt, which just seems more common. I don't know what the deal is with this gun. It reminds me of something out of Renegades, and I think it's kind of lame for the movie. Where's his fucking saw? Luckily for, you know, this figure, if I ever get him, I have a couple saws, because the not Iron Grenadiers, I'm sorry, the Steel Battalion figures came with saws, which is cool. So, you know, we get a version of The Rock as Roadblock, but I don't get why he looks like this when he should look like this. It almost makes you wonder how come Hasbro repeats this practice of giving you the figures you don't want first, thinking that people are just going to buy them, and they know that there's a specific design or a specific, you know, version of the figure that you actually want that you will actually wait to get, and the others will just sit on the pegs and they lose they eventually will lose money on those. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like common sense to me would be stop doing that shit and just give us the one we want first in higher quantities so everyone can get them and they make ample money. But, you know, guess what? I don't run Hasbro. I wish I did. That'd be nice. Now, for every lame Joe that's out there, there are equally cool Joes out there. And this is a G.I. Joe Trooper, and I am digging this design. Plus, it helps to add for grunts to our ranks. And they come with 3 different heads, or 2 heads and a mask, which is awesome. And they come with a shitload of gear, and I'm all for it. They're colored appropriately so they could fit in with your Joe ranks. They've got the right kind of gear so they don't look too futuristic and not tactical enough. It's a no-brainer. I mean, look at that. He looks like a G.I. Joe Call of Duty edition. Or a real-world military, you know, version of like a Marine, a G.I. Joe Marine, essentially. But I don't get this right here, which makes me think it's a Cobra disguise or something like that because of the colors. But I could be wrong. Who knows? We'll have to watch the movie and find out. But I'm geeked about this. I think this was a good idea. You know, we can all of us can throw out those gas masks and throw it in our Cobra bin, you know. Speaking of the Cobra bin, here is the Cobra Trooper. Now, this is actually a nice revamp of the Cobra Trooper. It feels like a throwback to Renegades, which is kind of strange, you know, being a Renegades is kind of new. But they took the clunkiness away from the soldiers in Rise of Cobra, which kind of makes sense because Rise of Cobra seemed like it was more Destro's game than it was Cobra's game. So if this is the result of all the failing Destro did, then cool. And he comes with a parachute. That's pretty damn nice, you know. I don't really see anything to complain about. I'm geeked about this because, you know, if we can find a bunch of these, we got blue Cobra Troopers to go with our Cobra ranks. So, like I said, 4 of these, 6 tops. That's what's going to be in my collection. And last but not least, we have Zartan. Now I dig this version of Zartan. It's kind of cool because he looks like a throwback to the version that was in Renegades. The costume and everything, even the placement of colors. I could be wrong because I've only seen the movie, that episode once, but if this is what he appears like in the movie, I'm all for it because that's pretty damn badass. I like the fact that they have the colorless versions of the extra heads of people he's impersonating, which is awesome because this way, you can differentiate what belongs to him and what actually belongs on your figures. you know and if you have an imagination, then it's easy for you to just put that head on and say, hey, guess what, that's Storm Shadow. Hey, guess what, that's Snake Eyes. So props to them for this. This is a pretty nice design. In my opinion, it's a little bit more innovative than the stuff they've done, because making the character change color, I know he did it in the show, it doesn't actually serve a purpose for your figure if you're trying to if you're trying to make sense of the things that these characters do. So it's kind of cool for them to make the extra pieces kind of stand out so that you understand this is a function that the character has. He can do this. So here's a little, a gimmick that you can display your character with, So props to them for that. So those are pretty much the figure offerings from Hasbro. They also did do vehicles, and I'm going to go quickly through the vehicles because, some of the vehicles is pretty obvious. Either you're going to like them or you're going to hate them. Either, you see them at first glance, you're going to want them, whatever. But I'm going to start with the lame ones first, or the ones I think could possibly be lame. So I'm not a genius or anything, I'm just, I have a regular kind of intelligence, regular level of intelligence. That is a Hiss Scout drone. Why are the Joes driving one? It just doesn't make sense to me. It's like a Hiss tank with a roll bar for the Joes. Lame. Super lame. I guess I should have said a roll cage for the Joes. It comes with clutch, so it'd be nice to get an updated version of clutch, but once again, that's lame. That is straight up a Hiss tank. It's very specific, Why switch that around and paint it green and say, hey, it's for the Joes? No. And then, as usual, because you can't have ninjas and not have motorcycles with swords sticking off of them, you have the ninja cycles or something. Sometimes I just want to slap these designers. This didn't work the first time around. It's not going to work again, this time around. I don't think people are going to be super crazy about that. What they should have done is given us the ones from the movie. And then, of course, here's the version for the regular, main characters. And they call it the Retaliator because it's not the same motorcycle when you put a white guy who does not use martial arts. You put a regular soldier on it, and it becomes the Retaliator. Boo. Anyway, here is it looked like the carrier ship from the trailer. I think they're calling it the Ghost Hawk. In the movie, at least from the trailer, I gathered that it is a carrier jet. It's supposed to, like a cargo plane of some sort. It's supposed to carry your troops. And once again, Hasbro has scaled it down to the point where it can only carry one Joe. To that, we say boo. I'm a firm believer that if you give us the plastic, we will pay the money for it. I do for the Chap May stuff, and so do so many other collectors out there. So, whatever. It kind of seems like all the Joe stuff is whack, but I'm going to give you the cool stuff now. And I'm going to start with the Joe stuff. This thing is called the Ninja Command 4x4, or Ninja Commando 4x4, I'm sorry. Now, I don't know why they had to rename it and repaint it for Snake Eyes, but if we replace that thing with the cannon on top with a machine gun and take the Arashikage symbol off of there, this is an awesome attack buggy for the Joes. And it's updated and it looks all sleek and cool and whatnot. I actually dig that, it's pretty nice. The Snake Eyes that they have kind of looks a little bit more tactical, but as you can see, he's missing articulation, so that's going to be one to throw into your box of spare parts, or you give it to your kids so they can chew on them. as per their usual, all the cool shit goes to Cobra. Now, this, what do they call it, wheel blaster bike, I don't know why they have these dumb names, but whatever. This is a badass vehicle, or whatever. It's got 3 sets of wheels, or 3 wheels. So this thing can go wherever. It looks pretty armored. It looks pretty heavily armed as well. And then it comes with a badass looking version of Firefly. Not much more to talk about, right? That's just badass. That's what Cobra needs. I'm gonna come up with some Vipers specifically to drive this thing. You know? So I'll have a couple of them that just attack on these. I mean, this is badass. And then I don't know what this thing is called. I see the Arashikage crest on there, so I'm assuming this is a revamped ninja-oriented version of the Vamp, but this is going to be the stinger for me, for my Cobra forces, because it just looks like the Cobra Stinger, you know, to the 30th anniversary Vamp. But it's badass. I mean, look at it. It's armored up. It looks like what the Steel Crusher should have been for the Rise of Cobra line. You should have been able to put 4 people at least inside of that Jeep. So finally, we get that. Next we have the Hiss tank. This is the redone Hiss tank from Rise of Cobra, but they finally worked it into something. Now, hopefully, and you can kind of see it from the interior of the wheel to the far end of the, you know, on the far side of the Hiss, that there are wheels in there. So these wheels aren't fully functioning. There's wheels underneath them that actually allow it to roll. Unlike the 30th anniversary Hiss, where the design is nice, but the treads work in a kind of haphazard kind of way. So I'm geeked about this. So we'll have another Hiss to get, and then on top of that, we get the Decepticon version, the Shockwave version of this. Y'all remember Shockwave from Transformers. So it's kind of strange that they even did this. I think this is a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, but still, you know, that's kind of badass that they were able to work that in there again. You know, they're kind of getting that off with these Transformers G.I. Joe crossovers, because this makes more sense than the Star Wars Transformers crossovers, because they just don't work, you know? So there's some badass non-rehashed stuff, even though this design I read was intended for the Rise of Cobra. At least we get it in some form here. Now, the last thing is the Fang boat, which looks like the water moccasin, or I forgot what it was called in the Rise of Cobra line, but you've seen this thing a billion times. They always add a new gun onto it, give it a new pilot, or repaint Copperhead, and they give it to you again. This would go under the whack shit for this this line so far. Now I wished that in the first line, the majority of the Joes we got were the face Joes from the movie, but they never do it like that. They always spread them out. So, hopefully soon we will see Lady J, Flint. That's who I'm really geeked about, and the actual movie version of Roadblock and Jinx. And then, you can call it a day, because then you pretty much have the majority of your team. We'll actually get to see Mouse and Tunnel Rat and the other characters that made it into the movie. So anyway, there are some other less interesting figures in this line, in this wave, but I omitted them on purpose because, let's face it, we're all not 5 years old. Even though this is like our inner child, we like toys that we can actually play with. So I'm not going to show you those weak-ass cash-in toys. So anyway, that's it for me. You've been great. I will be back with more videos later. All right? Peace outside, people.